Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gator Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, or perhaps your counselor, depending on how you want to look at it, Ben, and I am joined as always by my partner in crime, Mr. Randy. How you doing, Randy? How's the group therapy going? is
You
is
know what?
is Gainesville just a giant therapy session at this point?
I think that's what it is. And then to make matters worse, you had really cold, wet, soggy weather. So it was a Seattle state of mind. So that didn't help.
Yeah, I saw that on an article I was reading. Somebody said it was just a nasty Sunday the day after. It was just like, this fits the mood, right? For
Yep.
how everybody's feeling. Yeah, tough way to end things for sure. I was in a pretty good funk after this one. I think anybody that cares anything about the Gators was having a tough time after this one. So, but we'll get into it. We'll talk all about it here. First things first, of course, as always, run through the intro here, talk about our mission, our vision, and of course our agenda. So, first off,
hmm
our mission is to provide factual analysis of all things Gator football. Our vision is to have unfiltered conversation around the product we see on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on a review of film, and while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in fact. We will evaluate strategy and tactics that we see, as well as our observation of player personnel decisions and on the field execution. As for our agenda, we will take you through several different segments, first of which being our Oh My segment. So, in honor of Mr. Mick Hubert, and take you through the exciting plays that we saw during the game, which may be a little in short supply in this one. We'll then review the offense in our Chomp segment, then go through the defense in Gator Bait. And then we will take a look at what beef we had this week in our visor throw segment, things we thought were really just not so hot, whether it was with the play or the coaching. Then we'll take a look at recruiting. Lots of news there as of late here in our hatchling segment. And then we'll have a review of the culture and just kind of the overall state of the team and its pride, if you will, and pride of the sunshine. We'll then do a review of officiating with our Move Back You Suck segment. And finally, we will wrap things up with kind of a review of where we think the team is and where we go from here. Obviously, now into the off season as opposed to the upcoming weeks, unfortunately. And then we will also kind of wrap up, keep it or pitch it for the season. We'll review how this week went. We'll go back to the beginning of the year, look at our overall season picks and where everything finished out. So hopefully have a little bit of fun with that segment to kind of finish things out, and then we'll wrap things up for this episode. A quick note: this will not be far from our last episode of the season. We have several more things that we're going to get into. We're going to do a full season review next week. We plan to do a pod for National Signing Day, talk about how the recruiting class came together, and we have several more things we're going to do starting in January as well. So we'll talk to all that as we go forward, but just so everybody knows, we are planning on doing quite a bit more things, even though we won't have any more games to break down. So with that, let's get it started with the Oh My segment and the exciting stuff we saw in this week's game with FSU. Why don't you get us started there, Mr. Randy?
Sounds good, B. I'll keep it short and sweet. The oh my's this week might be a little bit few and far between, but I was able to pick a few out of the bunch. So, a couple that stood out to me: Jason Marshall sacking Rodemaker. It's funny, as I was saying his name, Rodemaker, I thought of the movie back in the days, The Rookie, with the kid who broke his arm and he had and all of a sudden he could throw a fastball like Rosen guard.
Rosenberger.
Exactly. So that's what I kept thinking of every time I was trying to say his
That
last
is
name. But
too
anyways,
funny, man. I haven't thought about Rookie of the Year in forever. That is
right,
hilarious.
right. A nice little callback out to 1997. We want our summer movie back. No, but I love what Marshall did on that scheme. There was a great setup. He laid back, laid back, laid back. He turns his eyes, all of a sudden books it, and just an awesome sack. I love the way Jason's been playing the past couple of weeks, and he's really stepped it up. But I just, more
Big time.
importantly, love to see the scheme and how it worked. He stayed home and he saw the opportunity. He jetted, he took it. Great sack, great tackle for loss. Following that up, the safety. I enjoy seeing safeties. I especially enjoy seeing when the Gators get a safety. I especially enjoy seeing 4, 5, or 6 Gators
Yes.
jumping to get a safety.
Yes.
talk about an all-out barrage of teeth in your face. Like he had no chance, and it was just great. I was there, and when I say that place erupted, the place erupted. It was every bit as loud, if not louder, than the Tennessee game. I mean, it was loud. Um, Another oh my, it to some people it might seem like a rudimentary pass, but Brown's pass to Hayden Hansen on the seam, leading him for a 24-yard crucial first down
You
to
know
get
what?
us in,
Good call out. That was a heck of a ball.
right? Led him perfectly, perfectly. So I thought that was awesome. Um, Johnson, Montreal, big run, man. 52-yard run, unsuspecting. We're just going to run the ball, run the quarter out, run the half out, get in there. And all of a sudden, we're just going to pop off for 52. A juke
Yep.
left, juke right, and then turn on the jets, and away we go. So I thought that was huge to hopefully build us a little bit of momentum, because I felt like that momentum was fading towards the end of the second quarter then. I just
Helps if
wish
you
you
make the field goal.
I know, I know. I just wish he had a little bit more in reserves to finish it, because if he would have finished that, um, oof, might as
Yeah,
well could have
once
called
once
game there,
again, once again though, if it had been Trevor, that's 6.
right? Right. Um, and the last one I'm going to call out is Big Dez. This is as active as I have seen him, and so a great wrap up for a tackle for a loss to force a crucial fourth down. But more importantly, the sack that he had on Rosengardner. To see the agility of 437 pounds do what he did, and just fling him like a rag doll. I just love seeing that, and I wished
Yeah, it
that
was great.
Big Dez had greater opportunities to go in there and be more of an impact. I get it. They're substituting a lot of bodies, trying to keep them fresh, but at the same time, it was nice to see Big Dez set free. So those were my oh my's for the game, bud. How about you?
So you had a lot more than I did, and I like them all for the record. Really nice call on that throw by Max Brown. That was a dime.
Yeah.
For those of you that were maybe not checking that out, Herbie called it out, and he was spot on. That was a heck of a throw to lead that ball, put it in a tight window on the move as well. Man, that shows you the athletic ability. That's kind of this, a ceiling throw for Max, I think. But man, shows you the potential that's there, in him as a prospect. Now, I don't know how often he hits that ceiling. We saw some other throws, not so hot, but I
Right.
also don't think we have enough sample size, not even close, to really make a judgment there. And seeing him be able to make that throw, I'll tell you, I didn't know he was capable of that throw. So
Yep.
that was really, really cool. I didn't have that on mine, but I think it's a really good call out by you. I actually only had two. They were two that you had. I wanted to highlight the defense here. We haven't been highlighting the defense very much on Oh My. Great call out on the
Yep.
Dez sack. I like that one too, and I did love seeing him just swing him down. And he swung down the running back one time too in the backfield. Like, just
Yep.
guys, like you said, like they're rag dolls. If he gets his hands on him, man, it's over. It's crazy. But the two that I have were two that you had, like you said. I had the safety for sure. That was my number one call out. Great to see a play call that close to the goal line be that a blitz, be that aggressive. We sold out and ran a blitz on the goal line. Like, I mean, you put yourself at risk, for a potential big play. AA didn't care. AA played this game like it was the last game of the season. You know what I mean? Because if we lost, it was, right? Napier did not. We'll get to that later, but Napier did the opposite. I don't know what was going on there, but AA played this game like it was the last game of the season, and I respect the heck out of him for it. He threw the kitchen sink at Florida State, and it showed. Right, 224 yards offense they had in the total game. This is an offensive juggernaut of a team, talent all over the field. I know they didn't have Jordan Travis. I understand that. It does make a difference. But this wasn't Utah with a backup quarterback. This was FSU with a backup quarterback. Very different animal. Very different animal. And I mean, we shut this team down, especially in the first half. So big round of applause to AA for doing what he did, for getting this team ready to do what they did. And they got a great win with that safety. I thought it was absolutely terrific. And then I too had the Jason Marshall sack. One, loved the play call once again, right? Finally got the timing right. We've been calling for it to get the timing right on some of these blitzes. Now, we missed a couple in this game as well, and it unfortunately cost us. There was a couple where the timing wasn't quite right. The Castell mistimed one coming in, Wingo mistimed one coming in. They were close, but they were just a
Yeah.
hair off, and they got picked up because of it. But when we get the timing right, and you see little improvements in this, right? They're getting better, and when they get them right, oh man, you see what happens, right? Rosengard never saw him coming, right? It was over.
Bingo.
It was over before the crying even started, man. And loved seeing Marshall get pumped up after that sack too, man. He was jacked. I think it's probably Jason Marshall's last game. I think with the way he's played the last few weeks, his draft stock has risen back up. I don't know if he's going to go first round still, but I think he's definitely, second round talent. And then it depends, of course, how he does in the combine. But I think he's
Yep.
gone. So, which is too bad because he finally started playing like we would have liked him to all season, and I'd love to have another season of that. But hey, it is what it is. So with that said, that's actually all I have. Those were the only two that I had in there. So we will, with that, close the book on the Omais for the season, and we'll move on to review the offense. And this is not going to be as pleasant as that was, quite frankly. So, um, we'll start out with our stats we always look at, and one of these is not too bad, and the other one's really ugly. So let's get into it. QBR again, NFL rating QBR for Mr. Max Brown was we'll call it pedestrian. I'll be nice and call it pedestrian. 45.31. It's pretty abysmal, is what it really is. That's a terrible number. We talked about all year, right? That goes to 158.3. Anything over 100 is good. That's not even 50, so that's real bad. Obviously, the pick really hurt with this at the end. That was kind of a garbage pick, so it didn't really matter. You take that off, it goes up a
Yeah.
little, not much. He's probably in the 60s somewhere. Still not great. Um, he didn't get much opportunity to do a lot better, which we'll talk about. As for yards per carry, without Brown, now I expected to include Max in this number because I thought he'd be running the ball a lot more. That didn't really happen, right? He attempted to a few times. He did have some carries, but most of it was, scrambling because he didn't have anybody open, which didn't always work out, right? Because he got sacked 6 times. And a lot of it just wasn't great, right? So if you look at it, there really were not near as many designed runs, and I'll get into this later, but not near as many designed runs for him as I would have thought, not even close. So you take Brown out of this because he had negative yardage because of all the sacks, so we're not going to include that yardage here, and we were at 5.21 yards per carry, which is really not bad. We called and keep it or pitch it for 5.5, didn't quite get there, but it was close. I think it could have gotten there had we called things a little differently. So started off fairly well, right? I didn't love the lack of passing overall. Again, I understand it though, because you have the lack of experience in Brown, right? He doesn't have it. And it was okay until it wasn't. And what I mean by that is it was okay to only have a few passes mixed in there until once again, Captain Conservative Mr. Napier play caller, right? I'm not trying to be too hard on Billy. I'm not calling for Billy to get out of here in any shape, manner, or form. I am calling for Billy to not be an OC as I have been all year, right? Pretty much since the first game, we've been talking about this. And this was a great example of why this shouldn't be happening. He showed why he's not the best because he took a strength of his in run game play calling, right? He is good at this. This is what he does well, right? Calling good running plays. And he made it a weakness because he overplayed his hand and called way too many into a defense that was just waiting on it. He refused to throw the ball down the field at all, basically. I mean, that throw to Hayden was pretty much it. And really, that was borderline. And the defense just sat underneath, and we never took shots. And when you do that and you let the defense creep up and creep up and creep up and creep up and creep in and so on and so forth, what do you think's going to happen? And then you still, on top of it, don't run any read option. It was incredibly conservative play calling, especially in the second half, really, especially in the second half, which ended up resulting, if you're not aware, in negative yardage in the fourth quarter. That's right. Our yardage numbers in the fourth quarter were negative, and we had 48 in total for the second half. So we had 234 for the game, and 48 of that was in the second half. So you tell me how the play calling went. Now, Florida State did do some nice things in their adjustments at halftime. They definitely brought more pressure when Max did try to throw the ball, and he did not have a lot of windows to do so. There's no question about it. However, clearly the play calling did not do us any favors. It was evident all over the place. 3-and-outs with nothing but runs called multiple times in the second half. And you didn't have the lead to be doing that. This wasn't the Tennessee game. And remember, I praised Napier for doing that in the Tennessee game and burning clock. This was not that game. You couldn't afford to do that here. Last thing I'll say, and again, it's also not positive, the O-line was absolutely abysmal in pass blocking. Now, I know this is an elite pass rush that Florida State has. They're very, very good. I understand that. But at the end of the day, enough is enough with this O-line. Damian George was terrible. I mean, he's absolutely terrible. I don't want to see him on the field next year unless it's in a backup capacity. We have to make changes here and now, and this is the time to do it. Transfer portal opens in 3 days? No, 7 days. I don't know. The 4th. So 7 days, yeah. We have to do this now. Both lines of scrimmage have got to get significantly better. We don't have a choice. I wouldn't mind picking up a linebacker while we're at it, but at the end of the day, those are harder to come by. We have got to get some linemen, and especially O-linemen, that can help fill some of our needs to be able to do some of the things that Napier wants to do as a team and as an identity, even if he's not calling the plays. This O-line was a weakness the entire season. It was certainly not any better in this game, even though they did run block semi-effectively some of the time, again, in first half. But that was when the pass was at least a threat. Once they brought the pass rush and knew the pass wasn't a threat anymore, what happened? Then they loaded the box up, and you couldn't run it either, right? This is why we didn't generate anything in the second half. And there was no creativity out ability to do anything about that for the entirety of the second half. It was really hard to watch. It was tough. I don't have much good things to say, and I'll leave it at that. So what you got?
So be it. So, hey, bud, this was a chomp segment, not visor throw. I'm kidding.
I got more to come in visor throw. Don't worry.
I know you do. It's tough. B and I were talking, just doing our briefing before, and just you're looking at the stats, you're looking at everything. It's like, did we have enough to win this? And a really close game? Would it make sense? Not. This is what's tough, because when you look at everything as a whole, as Billy Napes would say, the totality of it. Here's my summary of the totality of the offense. The Gators had just 3 points over their final 8 possessions. Right? In those possessions included 5 punts on 3-and-outs, a missed field goal, and an interception. Now, again, I agree with you. The interception, garbage time, whatever. But again, could we have driven down the field? Could we have tried to get a quick score? Could we have done an onside? Could we have? Yeah, sure, whatever. I agree with you, man. The play calling got way too conservative. 48 yards in the second half, 3 first downs in the second half. And we finished the game with 13. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Holy smokes. This, I know in the press conference, Billy said, the defense was humming. Well, it's not like the offense was stuttering in the first half, right?
No, they moved the ball okay.
Exactly. The first punt came halfway through the second quarter with 7 minutes to go. First punt, which, by the way, Crawshaw had a game. We'll get back to that. Moved the ball decently in the first half, right? You had a little bit of shift there in the second quarter, ended the second quarter with some penalties, and then the third quarter, and then the fourth quarter, it just got progressively worse. And that was one of those things that we had hoped, that these guys were built and they're battle tested. They've been through some close games. Can we pull it out, right? Just couldn't get it there. B, you mentioned their D-line. I'm going to mention someone in particular on their D-line, Jared Verse.
Yeah.
He's kind of good. He's okay.
Yeah, he's a little good.
He's a little good. Treated Damian George, I'll use the term I used earlier, like a rag doll most of the night. He literally, I'm not sure if you all remember seeing this, but he literally used George as another linebacker to push him into Brown for a sack,
Yep.
right? In
Yeah,
addition to
that
that,
was crazy.
it was. In addition to that, George whiffed twice, allowing Verse to get around. The difference was because of our scheme in the first half, we had the ability to get rid of the ball, use the run game. They weren't sure if it was the run or the pass, so therefore we got a couple people off because, again, when you look at the totality, Etienne was running the ball strong, Johnson was running the strong ball, or the ball strong, whatever.
And in fairness, I will say Etienne getting hurt in the second half was very damaging to what he was trying to do, but the recovery just wasn't there. I mean, the answer isn't just go to Johnson. You know,
No,
he put Trayon in the game and tried to run him up the middle once, and that was it. Like, no, like,
no. And that's what's tough, right? Because here's the thing. When you look at that first touchdown run by Johnson, right, Johnson finished with 107 yards and a touchdown, but he was also pretty banged up. When you look at that touchdown run from 6, 7 yards out, the O-line did exactly what they needed to do to seal off the edges.
yeah,
Speaking of sealing off the edges, I'm going to call out Arliss Boardingham. No, he did not have a very good offensive game, but he did the things that don't show up in the books.
yeah, he had a
He
great
had
block on that play.
several, right? He had
Yeah,
several crucial seals to take care and finish off that run by Johnson, open up another seam that Etienne had, and not to
yep.
mention a pick to where Trey could go free. So Arliss had a great job on the offensive side of the football by sealing with crucial blocks. So he's definitely gotten better at that. Okay. 7 of 16 on third down. 7
Yeah,
of 16 on third down, 43.8%, 12 percentage points above our season average. So, again, as the facts would show, Your Honor, we were moving the football, just not enough. Red zone offense, 3 for 3, just not enough. One thing that, and I'm going to get to it later, but the double reverse trick play. Here's the thing.
yeah.
I get it. The opportunity was there. I get the aggressiveness, but I don't need flash and dash.
Nope.
Just have Max protect and get the damn ball down the field to a playmaker.
It was also a terrible time to call that play because if
Bingo.
it doesn't work, which it didn't, though I do have a point that I'll bring up on that in a second. The timing, though, is the biggest thing, right? Because you have all the momentum. You just got the safety, you got a great return, you get all the momentum in the world, and then that play, disaster strikes because you get the equivalent of a sack, and the drive is literally dead. So you kill all the momentum by doing that. So that's the huge problem I have with that play. However, I will say this. I have noticed of late that intentional grounding penalty has come out a lot more often, even when the quarterback gets hit. And maybe this is something we can talk about later when we get to the officiating review. I didn't have it as a call out, but it really is a good point. If the quarterback gets hit, that disrupts the throw. How can you call grounding, assuming the ball clears the line of scrimmage? Because that I understand is automatic, but it did clear the line of scrimmage. But he was hit. So that has to impact the throw. So that gets really dicey for me. And I feel like lately that flag's been getting thrown almost all the time, not just on us, just in general.
Yeah.
And it feels like it used to not necessarily get thrown. And I just find that interesting. I just find it interesting that they call that a lot more now, when it used to be that if the quarterback was hit, it was pretty much like, well, we're not calling ground, and he got hit. It affected the throw.
Mm-hmm.
Which, for the record, to me makes sense. And it feels like that logic's gone out the window.
Yeah, I don't know. This was an ACC crew, and I guess we'll get to a lot of things and move back. You suck, which I'm sure people heard on the TV. Hopefully, it was very loud in the swamp when that was played, so that was good. But at the end of the day, the main thing that is frustrating about that, and I said it and you reiterated it, is the timing.
Yep.
How about you just man up and have Max protect, because
Yeah.
Max needed to be protected, not just for Max protect, but for Max to be protected.
Yeah, I
Get the
love
damn
it.
ball down the field, right? And just, we have weapons. We have weapons. Why can't we get the weapons to football? Check this out. We had 8 explosive plays. Johnson for that 52-yard scamper at the end of the second quarter. Hayden for that 24-yard pass on the seam that led to a great first down and a score. We had 6 more just under 20 yards. 8 explosive plays. And it
God,
just seemed
it didn't feel like it.
it didn't feel like it. Exactly. Exactly. And that's what was so tough. Another momentum shifter I thought was the end of the third quarter going into the fourth quarter. We had 3 failed back-to-back-to-back rushes where the O-line got zero push. Zero push. It forced a punt, and this punt was again, Crawshaw had himself a night. Great punt, had him down to the 5. Here's the problem. Coleman had a 39-yard return.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and
he
the
outkicked the
Knowles
coverage on
moment,
that one a little bit.
right? And it was just like, holy smokes. So anyways, I'm gonna wrap up my chomp here real quick by just saying, you know what? We had some opportunities. The red zone, we were 100%, just needed more. The rushing was there, over 100 yards. We needed more because obviously we followed that up from the Mizzou game after having 2 games sub 100 yards rushing. So that was
Yep.
good. Just needed a little bit more. O-line, Damian George. I don't know what's going to happen to him in the offseason. I really don't. I just hope that he's able to understand where he went wrong and how much better he can be, because at his size and his scope, that's a large man. That takes up a lot of space. He needs to get that stuff straightened out because he can be fantastic. I agree with you. Move him to guard, keep him in that
Move him to
guard
guard.
position.
That's
Right?
another thing we've talked about
Utilize
it,
him
right?
there.
Move him to guard. That's the
Yeah.
big thing. I know I said earlier I don't want to see him unless he's a backup. That's unfair. I don't want to see him at tackle.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because he's just not fast enough to play it. Put him at
Exactly.
guard, and I'm fine with it. I think that would be fine. So if we can make that change and make that make sense next year, then I'm okay with it because his
Yeah.
size and speed fits that way better. So
Agreed. So that's the main thing. Just more opportunities. We had him there. We had him on the ropes. At one point, it was 12-0. At one point, it was just we were out gaining them in yardage, 110-2. It
yeah,
just missed opportunities, man. Missed
for
opportunities in the
sure,
job.
for sure, it's tough. It's tough. All right. Put a bow on that one. Let's move it on. Let's talk. Let's talk a little defense. A lot more positives with this for sure. I think probably. I don't think it's really that probable. Really, best defense. Best defensive game we've seen all season.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't the least points we've allowed, I think it was the best they've played all year for sure. Really good stuff, especially against a very very strong offensive opponent. Again, even with a backup quarterback there. But he played serviceably, in my opinion, as far as some of the throws and reads he was making. So
Yeah.
let's talk about it. Give me Gator bait. Give me your take.
Yeah, man. 134 passing yards allowed.
Yeah,
90 rushing yards allowed.
yeah, yeah,
224. Come on.
yeah.
Come on.
Pretty good.
Held them to 4 of 14 on third down, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
28.6%, right? They
Crazy.
were they were over 42% coming into the game.
Yep.
So that was just unreal. Saw a lot of pursuit from linebackers, a lot of pursuit I saw a lot of swarming, right? This
Yep.
is one thing that I thought we would have done more of in the year, and maybe we did in the first, 4 or 5 games. We didn't do as much through the middle of that, SEC gauntlet. But I'll tell you what, there was a lot of swarming to the football to where we even shut down their run game in the first half because
Big time.
Benson, I mean, yeah, I transferred from Oregon, but Benson's a good runner. Don't
Yep.
get me wrong. Okay. When you look at our explosive plays, we just needed a few more. Didn't feel like 8, right? Well, guess what? They had 5 explosive plays. A 29-yard reception to Bell just zipped it on the middle, right? He got beat. 24-yard reception to Coleman, 14-yard reception to Wilson, 36-yard run for Benson, and the nail in the coffin, the 26-yard run for Benson. Outside of that, they don't have a single play over 7 yards.
Yeah.
5 plays.
Yep.
That was the bulk of it. And not to mention what assisted outside of those 5 plays were 3 crucial penalties. We'll bring them up later, but
Yep.
it is what it is. Okay.
Yep. For sure.
The defense held FSU at 85 yards in the first half. 85 yards. Holy smokes. With 4 minutes to go in the first half. right? They only had 10 yards of offense. So you can see what the last 4 minutes did in that second quarter to give them a little bit of momentum.
Yep.
I love seeing Jason Marshall respond in coverage. Not just, I know I called out the sack earlier, but in coverage, the pass breakups, his positioning, batting down balls. Loved seeing him. Sell out for safety. We did it. Sold the hell out. Brought the house, kitchen sink. It was a farmhouse sink. It was huge, triple capacity, and it was amazing. Love to see that. Wish you saw a little bit more of that, but I get it. I get it. Banged up secondary, without a couple starters, without a couple of stars, having to piece this thing together like MacGyver with a paperclip, duct tape, bubble gum, and whatever else you want to use. I get it. Um, Missed tackles in the backfield by Princely allowed Benson's second TD run. Princely had him. He was moving. Arm tackle, stretch, couldn't quite do it. Had to do a go-go gadget, but he couldn't. Just didn't have enough reach. And then right by, but the problem was nobody else was there to chip him. Touchdown. And on that last touchdown run that sealed it, that was just a gut punch because we had him. Jalen had him tackled in the backfield. Kimber had him. He scampered through, missed the arm tackle. Then Marshall had a shot at him, missed a dive, and then the next thing you know, he's just running and stumbling and bumbling, but not fumbling, and just he's in the end zone. Good night, game over, drive home safely. That was
Yep.
tough to watch. It was also tough to see Collins and Moore go down. Those guys had battled all year. They were banged up. They maybe not have been 100%. Obviously, Moore came back from injury, so it
Yep.
was really tough to see that because we just no, almost like the offensive line, that continuity to continue to have a stable unit. I know we sub a lot of bodies, but it was still tough to see to get that consistency there. And then probably one of the biggest pieces that we had, I know it's special teams, but I'll still call out Crawshaw here. 5 punts, 56.4 yards per punt with a
Crazy.
long bomb of 68 yards. Throw that man a Foster's. He earned it.
Yeah.
And he did well for us. Minus again that one just out kicking the coverage. It was what it was, but he had a heck of a game because he was able to pin them in certain places that led to some of that momentum. B, all in all, I agree with you. Probably one of the best, if not the best, defensive game that this unit as a whole, no matter how many bodies were subbed in and out and younger bucks were playing, the better games we've had. Because when you look at holding this team to 28.6% third down conversions, held them to 66% in the red zone, 2 out of 3, held them to just under, right at 25 minutes time of possession. The Gators had 34 minutes, almost 35 minutes time of possession. The crowd, I'll say, we're going to add it. I know Texas A&M 12th man, I get it, but boy, the swamp was loud, and that aided in a lot of false start penalties, delay games.
Delay
So that
games.
was
Yeah.
crucial. That was crucial. But I tell you what, overall, for this squad, for this unit, I think it was a fitting way to end the season. They fought, they battled, and besides Rosengardner being in there, it's still FSU. It's still an elite team. They can score. They've got weapons in Wilson, in Coleman, in Bell, obviously. So when you look at that and everything else that happened, and Benson, to do what they did and to contain them for as much as they did, this is one of those things where it would have been nice to have had 6 more points off field goals or 1 more score. And that's
Yeah.
all I got for Gator Bait, my man.
Good deal, man. No, I like it. Yeah, it was really good to see. It was really good to see. All right, so before I get into my takes on it, we'll start with the stat piece of it. So Rudenberger, QBR. See how many we can come up with. That was one I remembered too.
Okay, sure.
His was not impressive either. For the record, it was only a 61.75. So very, very pedestrian number from him there. And without his yardage or the team, the kneel down there at the end, 4.92 yards per carry. So not bad, under 5 yards a carry. To be honest with you, it's really interesting. It must have been those explosives that brought this number up. It didn't feel like they were approaching 5 yards a carry. Like you said,
Correct.
the biggest play they had was seven yards other than the explosives. And it's like, I guess those 2 big runs are what drove that number up. But man, it's pretty crazy. that they were that close to 5 without him, but they were. So that's the number again without the sacks is 4.92. But still under 5 is respectable again against a very good team, right? This is a talented team that we were playing here, and especially I think the strengths of this team were their offense kind of in general, running the ball and passing both. Obviously, the receiver talent they have and the running back talent they have, and then their D line, right? Those are the strengths of this team for sure. And we saw that, come through with the sacks that they had on us, right? And then, some of the things they were able to do. But overall, from a defensive perspective, right, we really held them in check. Like you said, I mean, we can debate if it was the best game, but I'll tell you what, it was definitely the best half. That first half of football, that was some defense, boy. I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
man, I haven't seen defense like that played at Florida in a minute. That was really great to see. I was pretty hyped for it. I was kind of like, am I seeing this right? Like, is this how this game's going to go? And then the end of the first half comes. We get a stupid, stupid penalty from a local boy out of Cocoa. And man, oh man, did that change the game because they got some momentum. They found some stuff that started to work, went down and got a touchdown out of it. Now, if we had even held that to a field goal, that whole game changes. But them going down, getting the 6, and then getting another 6 right out of halftime, I think it was the second drive, but nonetheless, um, that just changes the whole game. It just changes the whole game. So it's pretty disappointing, when you look at it. It really is. That those kind of things happened. But overall, I can't give the defense enough credit in this game. They were really, really phenomenal. And they played well in the second half too. It wasn't quite as good, but the penalties, like you said, are what really killed the second half. And we'll
Yeah.
talk more about that, but that was really the killer. And just those self-inflicted wounds, like you said, you've got to play aggressive, but you've also got to keep some discipline in it. And that's something that, we haven't seen the discipline hurt the defense, maybe just because they've been getting gashed so much that it hasn't mattered. Because they've had a penalty here or there, but really they haven't been overly penalized on defense. Haven't gotten a lot of PI calls, had one here or there, but it really hasn't been bad. No real defensive holding that I remember. Certainly no targeting that's been called,
Mhm.
though that call was correct. Um, it just hurt to see so many penalties on the defense in this game, and it stinks because this is the first time we've seen it really hurt the defense. It's mostly hurt the offense this year or special teams. This time it hurt the defense, and we couldn't afford it to because we didn't have anything on the other side of the ball this game, as we've already talked about, and we needed the defense to win this one for us, and they did their best. But at the end of the day, the penalties were really killer. So the thing that really sucks about this is what could have been if we had had this kind of defensive performance against Missouri or Arkansas. That was the thought that I had. If we could have played even 75% as well as we did in this one against either one of those teams, and it was a little better against Missouri. I'll give it that. It was a little better, right? We talked about it. We still had the misses, and I mean we had a couple misses here, but they weren't near as many, right? There were more in against Mizzou. But if it weren't for those misses there, man, we win that game. And certainly against Arkansas. Arkansas was just brutal, man. I mean, just so many defensive miscues all over the place. And that was probably the worst, if I'm going to be honest. That it is the worst. There's really no question in my mind because that offense is not good, and we made them look great, and that's just poor. So it just stinks because there were a lot of ways this year that things could have broken differently, and we could have gotten to, at least a somewhat better record, certainly bowl eligibility. Now I know you could also make the argument things could have broken differently and we were, 3-9 or whatever. I don't think that's really probably the case. I think maybe the South Carolina game is really the only one we really had a significant chance of losing that we won. But uh, hey, it is what it is. At the end of the day, I was proud to see the defense play better. I was glad to see improvement in the last game of the year. That was good to see. And I think, with the offseason and some of the changes that have just been made, we'll talk about that later. Just got some news just a little bit before we started recording here that there's been some significant change in the defensive coaching staff, which, okay, I was a little surprised it wasn't on the offensive coaching staff, but all right, the defense did needed some things too, so we'll see what happens. So anyway, with that, we'll close it up. We'll move on here to visor throw. I got a few here. I'll just get right into it. Number one, already talked about it. Unnecessary penalties. Spitting is unacceptable. Like, I don't know what you're thinking about. That's crazy. Like, that's Bush League. That's the only thing I have to say about it. Like, what are you doing? I mean, you just cannot. You don't even see that get called. Like, because it's so unheard of that it actually happens. That was obviously the big one. We already talked about how it added to the momentum that, or gave them some momentum that they did not have. Right? That was not good. And then there's the personal foul / targeting by Jaden Hill. This is a tough one for me because when I look at that play, even in slow motion, and I see that Hill has left his feet at almost the same time the quarterback starts to slide, it's very difficult to see for me how he avoids the personal foul. I can see how you avoid targeting, right? You can raise your hands up and not hit the quarterback, right? You can do it. You can not hit him in the head anyway. But it would be very hard to change your body angle once you've already started to launch, right? To make the tackle. It's just one of those tough ones where he started to slide right as Jaden jumped. That was probably almost unavoidable. I understand you have to be careful, but man, you've also got to be somewhat aggressive. So that's a tough thing for me. I'm not excusing it. You can't do it. It was a killer. They wouldn't have gotten the first down. We would have got the ball back. It was a big, big, big play. You do have to find a way to avoid it, but it's hard. That's a tough one. But overall, just the unnecessary penalties in general continue to be a thing. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. 8 penalties for 90 yards at home. Are you kidding? Like, that's just atrocious. Now, there are a couple we'll talk about, a couple that got called that we didn't like, couple that didn't get called that we wanted to see. We'll get there. But at the end of the day, 8 for 90 is just crazy. I mean, that matches, I think, our season high for penalties and yards, maybe definitely yards. I don't know about penalties called, but regardless, that's a big, big number. And it just can't happen. So anyway, already brought this up, but way too conservative in this game. Not just the play calling. We already talked about that almost throughout the game, but also not going for it twice on 4th and 1. You have an offense that's yeah, they're okay. They're kind of moving the ball, but they're not really moving the ball like super well, right? They're moving it, but they're, it's dink and dunk, for lack of a better expression, right? You got 4th and 1 in opponent territory with a lead. You're shutting the team out, and you kick a field goal? I don't know, man. I know it put us up 10-0 instead of 7-0, but I don't know. It's a yard. Like, I think you go for that. And then there's another one in the second half, and you punt. And that one, granted, was in their side of the field, but man, it's win or go home. Isn't this scared money don't make money, Billy? Like, I got to call out on that later, and I'll get back to it. But man, I just thought those were very conservative decisions once again. Captain Conservative is the new nickname for game management for sure, man. And I don't love it. I don't love it at all. I talked about it already. Not nearly. This is a big one for me. Not nearly enough read option for Brown. Brown showed against Missouri his read option game is next level. The guy makes a great read. He knows how to, he's clearly comfortable, right? There's a lot of things he showed he was not necessarily comfortable with. He's comfortable in the read option. Yep. I don't think we saw 10 snaps. I'm not sure we saw 5 snaps of true read option. Like, we had read option looks, but you knew it was going to the running back. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't really going to be a potential true read option. We didn't call near enough. We called more in the Missouri game when he played in a quarter. Like, what are you doing? Call that play more. It worked great. And it keeps a very aggressive D-line, which, oh, by the way, they had, off balance. Because if they get over pursuit happy and getting into the backfield, guess what? He pulls the ball out, runs around the end, and burns them. Why weren't we calling it more? Doesn't make any sense. That one makes my head hurt. Along with, once again, not getting Trey the ball more. I don't know how many times we have to say it. It got a lot better in the last couple of weeks, and then here we are again. I get he's a wide receiver, but you brought him back again in this game and gave him a touch out of the backfield as a running back. He had a rush. Why can't you do that more, especially when ETN gets hurt? Bring him back there. You clearly have plays that can do it. Why aren't we running them? That's all I got. That wraps it up for me. It's mostly the same old stuff, and I'm glad that I don't have to say it again after this week. What you got for visor throw, bud?
And be pretty dirty visor. We need some Tide. We need Gain and OxyClean and bleach and Color Safe and whatever else. I hear you. A lot of good call outs. I'll just throw in there Trey Smack. Trey Smack took the job from Adam Hollick earlier this year. Was ranked in the top 6 in kickers and percentage prior to this game. Finished 2 out of 4 for the game. Finishes 17 out of 21 for the year. 81%, number 44 in the nation. And the funny part is, towards the end of the half when he was kicking that field goal and obviously he got iced because Norvell called the timeout, he made it. And of course he steps up there again and just a little hook, just a little pull. So that was tough, fishing 2 out of 4. We've taken 3 out of 4, 4 out of 4, 2 out of 4. That's tough.
Yeah,
that's
tough.
I'm gonna go back to the Rosengardner play, the slide. I tell you what. So you got Hill on one side, Thornton coming over from the other side. This is what I saw. Now, fair point. When Hill lunged and Rosengardner began to slide about the same time, simultaneous, really hard bang bang play, right? Like I've said before, football is not a contact sport; it is a collision sport. No problem with that. Here's the interesting thing, though. Had Hill or Thornton would have let up, just let him slide, FSU would have been facing roughly a 4th and 4, 4th and 5. And at that point, 4 yards, 5 yards out, they would have more than likely had to have punted the football because of the time left in the game. So I thought that was the interesting thing, is that that's the kind of play on 3rd and 17 that allows FSU to continue the momentum, march downfield, all that good stuff. So that was a big visor throw for me. Another one, allowing 2 touchdowns within 3 minutes and 30 seconds of game time. So again, end of third quarter, end of the second quarter, going into the half, beginning of the third quarter, coming out and scoring. Again, 2 separate possessions, but within under 4 minutes of game time. That's what made that 12-0 lead just seem not that good. And then 12-7. Now it's 14-12. And that's what's tough. Now you're just inching back and forth. We didn't get to see more of what Max Brown can do in the read option. I agree. He showed it in Missouri. He seemed pretty comfy. Yeah, I get it. He had a hiccup earlier as far as handing the football off, but you think they would have worked on that the past week and he would have gotten more comfortable? Sure. I think Max, and I said this to a lot of people, I think Max is going to surprise us. And for the most part, he kind of did. Had a couple of great throws in there. We talked about the throw on the seam to Hayden. We didn't talk about the throw to Trey on the out route.
Yeah,
going out of bounds.
It was really nice. Yeah, right? I think if he was given more opportunities to do it, he would have done it more. But again, the pass blocking was really a problem, so I can't put that solely on Napier.
Yeah, sure, I get that. And so yeah, I get it. Captain Conservative. I'll take it. I'll
Yeah.
take it. I don't like it, but it makes a lot of sense, you know? It's funny, I had on their penalties as well. You said Bush League. I said, well, actually, that's right up Crawshaw's alley, you know, because he's Australian. But I tell you what, if we have the culture that we're supposed to have, if we have the type of discipline that we're supposed to have,
Yeah.
if we have the kind of emotional and mental toughness we have, I get it's a rivalry game, but those kinds of things can't happen. Now, again, Lions, young kid, yes, out of Central Florida, I get that. But guess what? Spitting, come on, man. You're better than that. This program is better than that. Period.
Yeah.
The trick play, plus the intentional grounding. Again, it's not a matter of I hate the play, but again, when you're a good play caller, you also have good timing in calling the play. It's not just about calling the play, right? It's the timing.
We've talked about it all year.
Right? It's the rhythm, it's the tempo, it's situational football, right? Something that the old ball coach knew very well.
Yep, definitely.
And that's the other thing too. That's going to lead me to my last couple points is a visor throw for me is, and I get it's not about any individual person, player accolade, but 21 years without a 1,000-yard receiver, Ricky was 35 yards away from hitting 1,000 yards. And his first reception came in the third quarter on a 3rd and 12. And it was a hell of a catch because he had to range behind to secure that grab to get the first down. And he did it. But that was his first reception, came in towards the end of the third quarter, right? And that has to go again with getting the ball to our weapons, to Slick Rick, to Tricky Trey, to Arliss Boardingham, to the people that can really make plays and do what we need to do to march the ball north. Injuries. I swear, it seems like every game there's an injury or two or a bang up or this. It seems like we haven't been able to finish this season on more towards the healthy side. Is that strength and conditioning? Is that just positionally, guys reaching, guys fatigued? I don't think so because of how much we sub. I don't know. It's tough to see all the injuries. Really, really is.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And the last thing that I'm going to throw out there on my visor throw is SMDMM. Scared money don't make money. Yeah. When I first heard that, I said, oh, okay. I dig it. I dig it. And we saw the first game in the swamp with AR as quarterback against Utah. Said, oh, this is okay. And then that's such a great name, Captain Conservative. I can't get over that. And then we just see this consistent lackluster. And here's the thing. The other problem I think we have as Gator Nation is the fact of it's not just push. Hell, Billy's wife said it'd be nice to see that ball go downfield a bit more, honey. You have one of the greatest offensive minds in your facility and the old ball coach. In addition to that, most people would say, well, guess what? You can't push the ball down the field if you have good protection. Fair. You can't push the ball down the field if you don't have any good talent. Fair. But guess what? Even if you have one of those, the talent, you can push the ball down the field. You can have more of a Neapolitan-style offense, not just plain vanilla. And that's what we've seen. And here's the thing, guys. Most people can say those first drives that we've seen out of the Gators, the past few games, whatever Billy's prepared for, it's done well. But after the first drive, it's like, okay, let's hope we can do something here.
Yeah, and the other thing, just to go back to that, man, like I was saying before in the offensive segment, like it really frustrates me because this should have opened up his full running playbook in this game, and it didn't. It didn't. He ran all the same stuff we've been running all year for the most part, with very limited exception of a little bit of read option. And it's like, what are you doing? You should have opened up the whole AR playbook here, right? It should have come back to last season and more, right? Because this guy is really good at that stuff. And it should have given you all these different options that you could throw, that none of this stuff was on film. And I know he's got it. And I know you can put that stuff in a week because it's the same blocking schemes for the O-line. So all it is, what plays are you running with the quarterback? And I know you can put at least some of that in a week of practice. And he didn't do it. And it just really frustrated me, man, that we were basically looking like the same team running the football that we were when Mertz is out there. And that's not a knock on Mertz, that
No.
we were doing what we needed to do with him. But
Yeah.
this should have opened up so much more, and we just didn't do it. And just that part of the game. I mean, I expected to see a lot of different stuff, and I didn't see hardly any different stuff. And I'm just
Right.
like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And that was the most disappointing by far for me in all of this. So
Yes.
we'll see what happens. Anyway,
We
is that
will.
all you had?
That's visor throw, my friend.
All right. Well, they're plenty dirty. To finish the season out, we're going to need to find a new dry cleaner. I think they're not going to have us back, so we'll
Right.
be shopping for one in the off season. Um, like Billy's hopefully shopping for an OC. Okay. All right. Moving along.
Heyo.
Let's talk some recruiting. Um, got a few things to touch on here. Try not to make it too involved. One thing I already touched on. I'll just touch on it briefly to start. Transfer portal season is here, right? We talked about it. I know this isn't Billy's MO. He wants to build a program from the ground up, from high school recruiting. That's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to make his team, a flash in the pan one season, thing, kind of like what Florida State has done a little bit, right? Though their recruiting is getting better now, obviously. But, he wants to build it up as a program. I respect that. I get it. However, there are certain needs that this team has that are not going to be able to be filled with your recruiting class. O-line. You can't fill that with a bunch of kids. They're not big enough to play. They can't do it. They just can't, right? You've got to fill some of those needs, especially O-line, D-line too, but O-line especially through the transfer portal. Got to happen. That's it. Point over. As for high school recruits, we had an absolute ton at this game. And actually, the feedback, all in all, was pretty positive. I do feel like a win would have helped because I think you would have seen that crowd really go nuts after the game and it would have been an even better atmosphere. But ton of positive things coming out of this game. One of the really interesting ones that I will call out. Still don't think we're going to get him. I'm still going to keep that tune. But Jeremiah Smith was at this game yet again. I believe this is third game he's been to.
Sounds right.
Or maybe it's the second game and then he also had another official visit. Not sure, but regardless, he's also potentially coming back again. He had a picture go up on Instagram with Tebow on the sidelines. Just really interesting to see him getting as involved. And then you look at Ohio State right now where he's committed, and their quarterback play is rough. And say what you want about Mertz. We'll talk more about him in a minute when we go through our season recap on Keep It or Pitch It. Man, Mertz is better than what they got going on at OSU right now. I don't care what anybody says. And their quarterback play is having a tough time at Ohio State at the moment. And I don't know that it's really potentially getting any better. I don't know who's there behind their current quarterback. I will confess to that. But I know this recruiting cycle, they don't have anybody big name coming in. So I'm not sure exactly what's going to go on there for him. And that's got to be playing into his mind, along with Lagway being constantly in his ear, because I know he is. So really, really interesting stuff there. Be really interesting to see what happens. Only other point I've got is I know Phil Sami is potentially going back to Texas again. That is still a concern for me. I know I've been talking a lot about it. The only good news I have on that front is I did see where a commit to Texas A&M, Evans, that we're trying to flip, uh, did say that he is actively being recruited by both Lagway and Phil Sami. So why would you be actively recruiting a guy if you're thinking you might flip schools? So that did make me feel a little bit better about his recruitment. Fingers crossed. We really need to hold him, really need to hold McCray, really need to hold Lagway. Those are the three big, big, big ones that we need to keep in this class. I think most of the other guys that are really important, for the most part, are pretty much already locked in. I think most of them shut their recruitment down, and I think we're going to keep them. We may lose one or two more. That could still happen. I think Amaris Williams is almost certainly gone. That one does hurt, but again, hopefully if we can hold on to the rest, we're going to be okay. So that's what I got. You got any other notes on recruiting?
Yeah, outside of that, it's funny because not funny, haha. Just in lieu of the news that broke just before we started the
Yep.
pod, you look at kind of what Raymond's done in his
What?
tenure.
Yeah.
And
Why don't you say what the news is? Because I don't think we've said it.
so it's been reported this evening, Monday evening, just before 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that the Gators have parted ways with Corey Raymond and Sean Spencer. That's it. Huge.
Yep.
So
Pretty remarkable stuff. And for those
very
that don't know, Sean Spencer is the D-line coach. Corey Raymonds is technically the secondary coach, but really he only coaches the cornerbacks.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what's tough because mainly a lot of people know Corey Raymond from his time at LSU and what he's done there, right? And so the other thing too is Raymond was very influential in getting Jordan Castell, right?
Yep.
He was very, very influential. I'm sorry, Spencer was very influential. Kelby Collins, TJ Searcy.
Yep.
Right. And so, and of course, going after LJ McRae, right, who praised the coaching staff as far as being very engaged with him and things like that. So again, between that, I just hope that it doesn't lead to more flips or decommits, whatever the case might be in the coming week. So outside of that, the one that I thought was very interesting, you might have seen it. I thought most people might not have looked at it that much, but I think it's a big deal just because of the fact that it's offensive line. Marcus Maskell out of Snellville, Georgia, Gwinnett. He was very encouraged. He was interviewed by On3 after the game, and he said he was very encouraged because, and I'm paraphrasing, he says it feels like the Gators are headed in the right direction, and he believes in Napier's process. So he believes they're just a little bit off. And so why is that important? Why is Marcus Maskell important? Well, a couple things. 6'5", 290, 4-star, and by the way, the number 18 tackle in the country.
Yeah, he's a good one.
We kind of need some help on the OL, and if he's there, and if he's seeing this, and if he's understanding, and yeah, of course, he said, yeah, a win would have been nice, but and the other thing he commented on was the environment. So that's promising, especially knowing, and I get it. We'll talk about it, of course, in the future, but we're going to get a lot of good pieces back, and that's great. But more importantly, I tell you what, it's almost like having an older vehicle, right? You have an older 382, and you know what? It just needs a new carb. It needs new heads. It needs two springs, retainers, clips, sleeves. It just needs a whole engine overhaul. It needs a full rebuild. That's what the offensive line needs. And that's what we're going to see what happens here in the offseason. So to hear that kind of comment out of a top-ranked offensive lineman prospect, I'll take it.
Yeah, I think, and again, we'll talk to this in a little bit when we talk about the transition of coaches. I think it's more likely to affect current players than it is recruits. There may be a recruit or two that gets affected, but this class isn't super strong at DB anyway. We only have a couple coming in. I'm more worried about guys and defensive line for that matter, because we've already lost a couple defensive line commits. I'm more worried about what it does to current players, that and hitting the transfer portal. That would be my concern with these changes at coaching. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, anything else for you on recruiting?
That's it, my man.
All right. Let's talk a little Pride of the Sunshine. Give me your culture take this week.
Yeah. So Pride, a couple things. Jamari Lyons spitting, no bueno. Just flat out, when we look at everything else that we've talked about in this team regarding discipline, regarding the emotional toughness and mental toughness, and the things that Billy is trying to equip these guys with, these young men with, that's just unacceptable. I get it's a rivalry game. I get a lot of things, but it's one thing you can say some things, you can stomp your feet, but at the end of the day, when you spit on another human being, that's just unacceptable. So hated seeing that. And I like what Billy said to him on the sideline. He talked to him and sent him off. So that is what it is. Billy made a comment after the game in the press conference, basically saying, we're going to do what's in the best interest of our players. I have belief in the players. I know the young men in that locker room. They're about the work, and they have what it takes. So if you want to say anything about the way the season went, the outcome, we can coach better. We can do better for our personnel. We can do better for our organization, and we can do better for our players. Okay, Billy.
Yeah, I like the ownership there for sure.
Right? I hear it. I've also heard I'm starting to skip more and more on scared money don't make money. Now, and again, December 5th is a very important day. I know it's coming up, obviously, but December 5th, and not regarding transfer portal or nothing else. December 5th marks 2 years since Billy Napier touched down in Gaines, Vegas. All right, Billy, it's been 2 years. If you were president, it's be halfway through your tenure, right? Halfway through your office.
Mm-hmm.
This is when the rubber meets the road.
That's right.
So I'll take that. Tirada Mitchell, right? For people who don't know Tirada Mitchell, he was a transfer portal guy, right? He came from Ohio State, and he had this to say in the press conference.
Yeah, I saw this.
He told the young guys, we have to restore order to this program. And the young guys coming up received it. And he said the program's not too far off because he did come from Ohio State. Ohio State obviously did a fair share of winning. And truth be told, he's not sure he's going to explore what the NFL has to offer. He's going to go through that process, but he didn't say, I'm committing to leaving. He's just said, I'm going to explore that process. So to get him back, because I think he had a very good second half of the season, would love to see him come back. But if he goes, I get it, no problem. Scar tissue. All right, we got a lot of young guys. And the one thing that I can say is that, especially in college football, for a lot of people who play college football that make that leap to the pros, the main thing that they say is NFL speed is different. Yeah, we're 18, 19, 20 years old, but if you're going up against a 22, 23, 24-year-old, it's night and day. Why is that? Time, snaps, experience. We're getting some of that. Didn't have a lot of it. We're getting some. So there's scar tissue there. A lot of close games, a lot of close calls, a lot of come from behinds, a lot of mental errors, a lot of unforced errors. Does all that scar tissue get scraped out? Does that scar tissue stay? Because either it's going to define the rest of these players over the next 2 years, because they're going to be what they are in spite of it or because of it. It's their choice. It's their choice. Let's hope they have enough scar tissue built up to make the right decisions, persevere and push through, to have that mental toughness, emotional toughness, and physical toughness. Last thing I'm going to say is this program in a better place than it was 2 years ago? Inside the white lines, people might differ, especially in lieu of the record. Regardless of the fact, I can absolutely say it's in a better place compared to 2 years ago. When you look at these players and the way they talk about each other and the way they talk about Napier as a father figure, nobody said that about Mullen.
No.
Nobody said that about Mullen. In addition, the way that Mullen and Grantham ran the offensive defense, they were in silos. Mullen never addressed the defense. Mullen never talked to the defense. That's part of the reason why Ventrell Miller played so pissed off. Never addressed him. With Billy, he knows those are all his kids.
Yep.
And he treats them as such.
Yep.
You look at what he brought with Gatorade, developing young men, not just football players, developing them as men, human beings, leaders in the future. Phenomenal. The main thing I'll say is what happens regarding coaching changes. Clearly, we saw a little bit of that this evening, but at the end of the day, What happens to this two O-line coach approach? See, I'm a poet and didn't even know it. What happens to special teams? What happens to the offensive coordinator position? What happens there? Will Billy put his money where his mouth is? Will he be scared moving forward? Or will he truly buy into his own philosophy that was mentioned 2 years ago? Release the hounds, do what we need to do. And when the rubber meets the road come fall of 24, this team doesn't look back. That's all I got, B.
Well, that's really good, man. And it's a really good point you made. And I love the point about this program being in a better place because, you look at it and, we get caught up, I think, in just what the record is, right? And that matters. There's no question about it. We don't want to
Yeah.
lose, right? No question about it. I'm right there with you. But there are other things that contribute to that, right? And that get us there over time. And this is a big one. This is a really, really big one. It's why we have this segment in here, right? That's why we talked about including it. You made a lot of really good points to make sure that we included this as a part of what we do when we talk about this. And I think this is a huge one, right? What's the state of the program? What's the organizational culture like? And are we in a better place now than we were? And to your point, I don't think there's any question that we were, or that we are, excuse me. I think it shows on the field. And I think that's where I see it most of all, week in, week out. Here we are again, another solid week of effort, right? These guys, there was no quit in this team. They were playing their butts off in this game. And for what? So you could go to a meaningless bowl game? Yeah, apparently. They wanted to win this game. That was evident in the way they were playing. Are you kidding me? The defense played their tails off. And for the record, I think the offense, did as best they could with what options they were given. I didn't see a player effort problem in regards to this, not at all. And I
Fair.
haven't
Yeah.
seen one. I haven't seen one, right? They were playing for the seniors, they were playing for the bowl game, and they were playing for each other as they always do. Whatever keeps this team motivated, whatever the motivation is from week to week, month to month, whatever it is, it shows. And it continues to show week in and week out. The only concern that I have is that it is hard to keep that going over time if you don't start getting some wins. So I do think that while he's done a great job at keeping the culture up through this difficult time, I think he's done a tremendous job of that. At some point, you got to start winning. And that
Got
does
to.
have to come. You got to do it. So if we don't see that transition start to happen next year and continue to happen the year following, I don't see where the culture will be able to be maintained in the manner in which he has it rolling right now. I think his culture level is, I can't say second to none because the recruiting's still really good, even despite some of the recent, reversals. But
Sure.
it's right up there with recruiting. He's doing a phenomenal job with this. And that's one of the things, as we've talked about throughout this year, that has really given me hope for the future. So with that, we'll close up the Pride of the Sunshine. Really good points there, as always. Continues to be a segment I look forward to hearing from you on every week.
Yeah, man.
Let's talk little officiating. Move back, you suck.
Hmm.
Fairly decent game here, in my opinion, overall. I mean, we're certainly going to critique it. It's what we do. But considering these were an ACC crew, which I kind of like that idea. I hope we bring in, I think we bring an SEC crew to them, when we go there, keep some of the bias out of the home field, right? Um,
Hmm.
I think we could have seen some ACC bias here, considering the circumstances that Florida State was playing for in this game. I really didn't see that. I didn't see a biased game here. There are some things that we'll call out. I know you have a couple. Um, I'm only going to take issue with one. Well, it's two really, but it's the same one that I'll bring up, and I'll keep mine brief. Two different times, there were clear push-offs by Coleman on Marshall. There was another time that I know that I think you're going to talk about in regards to something with Hill, but two times clear push-offs on Marshall by Coleman. One in the end zone where he almost caught a touchdown, but the ball was over his head. Another one where Marshall should have had a pick and probably would have had a pick if Coleman did not push off him. Neither of them called offensive PI. I know offensive PI doesn't happen a lot, but these were both pretty blatant. Like, they were pretty solid push-offs, and I think you could have flagged either one or both, and we didn't get a thing, and that was pretty poor. When you look at Marshall's size differential, he was covering the heck out of Coleman. Coleman had a very pedestrian night. He did not have a big game. Johnny Wilson had the bigger game. Coleman was held in check for the most part, and credit to Marshall. Hats off, man. He did a phenomenal job on that guy in shutting him down. Again, his play's been a lot better, and I was disappointed to not see those calls. So that's really all I've got. Take it away. What did you see?
Holy smoke! Sit down, buckle up, and enjoy the ride. All right, first one. So on the Rosen-Gardner run that led to targeting. Before that, if you look at the play as he was leaving the pocket, number 71 is is right tackle. Well, you can't miss him. He's a very large man. You can see him take his paw out and hold Castell, drop Jordan Castell. Now, the reason why that's so significant is because we had a very similar call on Montrell Johnson's run down to the end zone at the end of the second quarter. Very similar. It wasn't a hold. Player got pushed down, but it was called a hold. It was not called Rosen-Gardner down. And guess what? Targeting. Holy crap. Change of momentum again. So it was what it was. The OPI called on Wilson, right? Not called on Wilson. I had that one on my list as well. But the DPI on Marshall, that's what's tough because of the positioning of it, right? When you look at where he was in relation to the football, I get it. And this is also going to go with Moore, because if you look at Moore with 12 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, very similar coverage, broke up the ball, broke up a pass. He was in between. He didn't whip his head around, but if you look at in the second quarter, it was a no call. But in the fourth quarter, it was called. Are you kidding me? Going back to the Marshall, the push off, it's like, how do we not see that? How do we not recognize that? It's just unbelievable when you look at the consistency of the call. Very, very tough to me. The rush on Max Brown, great rush, great scheme, untouched, personal foul. Why? Unnecessary roughness, face mask to face mask. I don't know. That was really tough. I thought it was a really good football play, believe it or not. So that was what it was. And then I will say this, holding on our lineman. I forgot who the lineman was, but to negate Johnson's run with another 10 seconds, because he was going to be at probably the 4 to 5 yard line on that run after the 52-yard run to put him in really good position just before the half. So that's the other thing. Player was chopped, pushed down, not held. See it happen all the time. Why was that called? And also why when Rosen-Gardner's run that led to that targeting, why wasn't that hold call when Castell was pushed down in the exact same way? That's it. And then the last one, which I can't remember the last time I heard of this flag, right? Almost like, back judge out of position. Flag for excessive blocking out of bounds.
Yeah, excessive.
In a rivalry game, like out of all things happening, I get it. They want to control the sidelines and this, that, and the other, but excessive blocking out of bounds. I'm just gonna have to call a big old move back. You suck on that one. So, anyways, ACC refs overall not terrible, yeah, but the consistency is what bothered me in this game, and especially when it came to some of those non-OPI calls on Coleman, because he clearly did push off, especially one of the last ones there. Actually, it was not on Marshall. I apologize. It was on Hill, because
Right.
he was looking at going, what in Sam Hill did I do? You didn't do anything. You just got caught up in the wrong place because they saw the tugging earlier, right? He tugged first, but again, Wilson tugged second. And typically, when you have a skirmish between two players, you're like, okay, well, the second one, the ref's going to catch that one, right? Which should have been Wilson, but no, they called
Yeah.
it on Jaden. And what are you going to do?
No,
Oh
it's
well.
interesting, and that's where. So it's interesting that we had, kind of different takes on this because we're normally pretty well aligned on this. But that's where, your eyes as an official in doing this, sometimes come into play, right? So I think that's really important, and I appreciate the takes there. I think it's good value add to have that. So with that, let's get into our wrap up here, and we have quite a little bit longer wrap up than normal on this one, just because we want to cover a couple of different things. So first things first, just give me your thoughts on the team, where we're at, especially with the recent changes here. If you want to throw in a little thought on that, and yeah, let's talk about it.
That's wild, man. So first of all, 5-7, not the outcome we wanted. Not the outcome anybody wanted. I'm sure it's
No,
the outcome that Vegas wanted, but
yeah,
really just not the outcome we wanted. It was tough. I will echo your sentiments. Enjoy the fact of the effort that was put forth this season in lieu of personnel, in lieu of scheme change, in lieu of injury, and in lieu of the opponent. When you combine all those four categories, the effort that we got out of players this year, phenomenal.
yep.
I think when Graham came in, he was going to be ranked the second lowest quarterback in the SEC,
Oh, I saw last on mini sheets, dead
or
last.
last, right? Exact second to last, right? Exactly, bottom tier, whatever. And he just came in and he led by example, and he did a phenomenal job. Phenomenal job. So it was what it was. Um, when I look at some of the games this year, could we have gotten two or three more wins? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what's tough. To go back and go the what ifs, the should haves, the could haves. And so kind of heartbreaking in that sense. My heart goes out to these guys because again, I will agree with I will side with Billy. Some great guys in that locker room that are going to do hopefully some amazing things in the future. Um, Having the news drop tonight, I kind of agree with you. I hope it doesn't affect current players too much. I know there are different relationships going on in the locker room. I really hope it doesn't mean a couple players leave for transfer portal, this, that, and the other. But truth be told, Corey Raymond, as great of a recruiter as he is, maybe on the coaching side, it's not equaling out as much as it should, or as much as it did back in the day at LSU, right? Back then when he coached people like Adams and Stingley and Ricks and whoever else he coached. He's lost his touch, right? He's 53, 54, 55 years old. Who knows?
I don't know.
Sean Spencer, you know, Sean Spencer, Chaos Spencer. He brings some chaos. He's the only one on that sideline that I think matches Double A's intensity. However, could be a lot better.
Yeah,
And clearly, Napier saw something from a continuity standpoint and a philosophy standpoint that was not going to help when that rubber meets the road next fall. So I can only hope that this is a little wake up, a refresh, a revival, call it. I don't know. And hopefully it leads to good things with this 24 class coming in. Maybe Mertz comes back, maybe Brown comes, maybe a couple other people come back, and because they have some unfinished business, and that would be nice to see.
yeah,
So
would be. Would
yeah,
be. We'll definitely talk to that some more in some of the future stuff that we do. Um,
yes,
so yeah, interesting stuff. I'm still not sure if I have my head wrapped around it fully, as far as the changes go. But let's go back to what we started with this with. So I wrote a lot of this, or my thoughts on this beforehand, and it's funny because one of them has already come up in terms of what has happened with these firings. So anyway, as you said, man, it's tough to swallow a sub 500 regular season. So I know there's a lot of stuff going around. Oh, 3 losing seasons for Florida. No, it's not. No, it's not. Let's be clear. There are 3 losing seasons because we lost a bowl game. That's not the same as 3 losing seasons. Okay, the regular season is we were 6-6 2 years in a row, and this year we were 5-7. That's a losing season. The last 2 years we were 500 and then lost a postseason game where, in last year's anyway, half the team didn't play. I don't want to hear we had a losing season last year. No, we didn't. We were 500. That's just spinning the story to fit your narrative, right? I don't want to hear that. But this was obviously truly a losing season, and that is difficult. It's first one since 2017. It's tough to swallow. It's not fun. And I think a lot of things need to be looked at in the offseason to make sure we aren't here again next year, right? That's what it comes down to. What are we going to do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? So the three biggest, in my opinion, we'll talk a lot more about this next week when we do our full season recap. But the three biggest, in my opinion, are organizational structure, meaning how the coaching staff is set up and constructed, right? You already kind of mentioned it with the special teams and the dual offensive line coaches. I think that needs to really be looked at. Coaching personnel changes. So I have hire an OC, but I guess we're starting on the other side of the ball, which I get, and player personnel via recruiting, and also, of course, the transfer portal, as we've already discussed. To me, this is where Billy is going to make or break, in my opinion, and I'm rooting for him. I am, because I think he's got things in place that are good and are solid and have a foundation that can really last, right? But he has to make moves. Now, he's made some moves, right? That already happened. But are they the right ones? I don't know. The both of those firings are really interesting to me. Did not expect. I can't figure out which one I'm more surprised by. Corey Raymond is probably the one I'm most shocked by, because he was the biggest get for Napier. He was the biggest name that he pulled in when he came in, and to let him go just 2 years later, it's kind of head scratching, to be honest with you. It's a little head scratching for me on the surface. Now, having said that, have I seen anything with our cornerback play since Corey Raymond has been there that I've been like, yes, this is why we got Corey Raymond? No, not a thing. In fact, if anything, it's been poor. So I will say that part has been unimpressive as far as his coaching goes. His recruiting still has seemed to be pretty decent, but his coaching leaves something to be desired, at least from what we've seen on film thus far. I will say that. So that part I can see. Same, I think, could be said of Spencer. Pretty good on the recruiting front, not as hot on the coaching front. That D-line has really struggled. They've been solid, but nothing stands out. Nobody consistently gets in the backfield, right? Even Princely, who had that really good run, we can never get home. We talk about it all the time. We rush forward, we never get home. Even if somebody beats their man, they never get home, right? We're never doing anything that's like, oh wow, that really pops. You know what I mean? You just don't see it.
Yeah.
And I think so. I think that for the most part that makes sense to me. And I guess because of what we've seen in the lack of development of the DBs, I guess, I don't know, feels a little early for that still. That one still really surprises me. I wonder if that's more, I don't know, personality differences and things of that nature. I'm not sure. Obviously we're not behind the curtain on that, but that one
Yeah.
still just, I haven't figured that one out yet. Maybe some more news will come out about it and we'll get a little more insight. But anyway, like I said, Billy's got to make moves. He's already making some. I hope he continues to make more, because there's more that needs to be made, quite frankly. The offensive side of the ball has to be addressed. To me, that is actually more important when you look at coaching personnel, than what we were seeing on the defensive side. We already talked about it. He's shown he doesn't walk the walk when it comes to scared money don't make money in game situations. But can he do it in the offseason? Can he walk the scared money don't make money in the offseason? Maybe he can. He's showing some evidence so far, so we'll see. I think the book on him was he had never fired a coordinator before, so this might be a first. So hey, we'll see what happens. This is big boy stuff. So with that, let's finish up and wrap up Keats Bit or Pitch It for the season. So last week, we got it all wrong. We went 0 for 3. We picked all the same, and we went 0 for 3 again. I think that's 2 weeks in a row. We picked the same, and both went 0 for 3. So we had this set up last week, just to run through it real quick. We wanted to see FSU was getting 162.3 yards per game. We said that UF would allow less than 150. We both pitched that. They obviously allowed less than 100, which was kind of shocking. And so at the end of the day, we got that wrong, obviously. They were converting 41.4% of their third downs. We said we'd hold them to less than their season average. We did. We didn't think they would. We got it wrong. And lastly, they were averaging 4 yards per carry allowed this season. We said we would get 5.5, came close, 5.21, but did not get there. We kept that, didn't get it. So there you go. So with that, we're going to buzz back and we're going to look at the full year ones that we had here, even though this isn't our full year review. We're going to do the keep it or pitch it's just to wrap this segment up for the year. So with that, our first keep it or pitch it for the year was Graham Mertz will be mediocre, sub 63% completion, 10 or more picks, and QB will be at QB, and we will be forced to produce with our rush offense or not at all on the offensive side of the ball. We pitched it. We were both correct. He had a 72.9% completion rate, of course, through 11 games, 20 touchdowns and 3 picks, 2,903 yards, if I remember correctly. So definitely was not Mertz that caused any issues on offense. He was more than solid, as we talked about all season. So that was number one. We both got it right. Get ready for that trend to stop right now. So at some point throughout the season, we will have at least 5 freshmen starting on either side of the ball. I didn't go back and look to see how many it was. It was well more than 5. This ended up being crazy. I did put a caveat in that this should not be due to injury. So some of these were actually due to injury, but I know we had at least 5 start that were not. So in this case, I ended up getting this one correct. Randy picked pitch it on this. So we had a difference on that one. Number 3. This one's crazy. So when we reviewed this at the midway point of the season on the bye week, total passing yards per game will increase by 30% over last year. So it needed to go up from 223 to, I believe it was like 279 or 289 or something like that. Production will come from better passing concepts and receiver play. I pitched it, but I said barely. I said it'll get better, but it's not going to keep going. At the midway point, we were up over 100 yards per game. We finished the season at only 259.2. Now, even if you take out this last very pedestrian passing performance, we were still only at 275. So we still didn't quite hit it, even without that. So unfortunately, even if you take out, and I would have been willing to take this game out because it was kind of an aberration, obviously, with Brown being back there. But even without it, we still didn't quite make it to the 30% growth. So I got this one right. Randy did miss, but I was going back to listen to some of these because I didn't remember what everybody picked. And Randy did call out Pearsall over 900 yards. So kudos on that one, buddy. You had a nice little prediction there.
1 point.
Yeah, you get a bonus point for that for sure because you called that one on the number. Kicking game will be improved from 22 season. Now it was, so in that regard we got this right because we both kept this, but we were technically wrong. Now number 1, field goal percentage will be at least 85%. Now this one's killer because if Smack didn't miss 2 in this game and only missed 1, he would have covered this. He finished at 81% because of this game. He was 88% coming in. Unbelievable. Also, Crawshaw, we called for 50 yards per punt. I think we might have been a little overzealous there. Crawshaw finished second in the nation in punting yet again, second year in the row, by the way. And he did up his average from 47.9 last year to 48.8 this year, ranked second in the country. He was also second in the country in net punting. So we might have been a little too high on that 50 number. There's only one guy in the country higher than him. He is at 50.1, Boise's punter. But yeah, so technically because of the field goal, I would have forgiven the punting looking at those stats. But looking at the field goal percentage, we can't say that we got that one right. So we were both wrong on that one. Here we go. Offense will finish the season ranked lower than they were last year. I kept this, but I said it's very close. I even said it'll probably be 1 or 2 spots. This is crazy. We were 58th last year. We are 59th this year. 1 spot lower. So again, when we looked at this midway through, we were 31st. We were doing way better. Didn't end up that way. 59th. Pretty wild. So I got it right. Randy missed this one. Defense will be better than the offense in overall rating. Actually, I might have had these flipped. This might have been the one that was 31st. I think this is the one that was 31st. Sorry, I don't remember where the offense was. We both kept this, said the defense would be better than the offense in overall rating because of what we saw out of camp and the the spring game and everything else. Of course, it started off really well. As I said, I think this is the one where we were 31st. Boy, did this fall off, obviously, in these last 5 games. We finished 81st. It is improvement from the 87th that we were last year, but 81st, huge drop. Both missed that one. Yikes. Yeah, moving along. Last but not least, it's painful. Florida will not cover the preseason DraftKings prediction of winning 5.5 games. We both pitched it very emphatically. We were both wrong. So with that, Randy ended up 1-6 in the preseason predictions. I was 4-3, leaving our season total at 19-20 for me and 10-29 for Mr. Randy. So there you have it. That's Keep It or Pitch It for the season. It's a good thing it's only for fun because neither one of us did very well. Both sub 500, much like the Gators, unfortunately. Hopefully we can do better next year. Really though, we just do it. We just do it for fun. Try to come up with some things that we have a tough time picking. And like we said, have a good time with it. So with that, we'll close this thing out. Thanks to everybody who's listened along the way this season. Really enjoyed bringing this to you. And again, we will continue to bring it to you with some different topics throughout, starting with our season recap next week. We do have a page up on Facebook under My Two Bits. Feel free to post anything you'd like to hear, topics wise, things you'd like to have feedback on, anything like that. Feel free to post that there. But really, just appreciate everybody who's listened. And yeah, we'll talk to you again next week. Anything else you want to add there, Mr. Randy?
That's it. No, man. B, all good things. Thanks for the group therapy. This is good. It's a lot better than paying $200 an hour to a shrink. And like I said, too, kudos to you two for organizing this, and thanks for asking me to do this. It truly has been great. Never thought I'd be doing something like this, and had a lot of fun with it. So thank you to you.
Well, appreciate that, man, and back at you. Appreciate your work and all the stuff you've put into this and participation as well. It's been really good to do it with you, and look forward to continuing to do so. So we'll be back next Monday, same time, and all that good stuff, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. So wherever you are and whenever you may be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we'll see you around, Gator Nation.